Okay, now I'm going to go through how to find the subject and verb of a clause. And this is an absolutely essential skill to understand how clauses work within sentences. And keep in mind that clauses can come in three types. They can be independent clauses, dependent clauses, or relative clauses. And for each case, you'll need to know what the subject and verb are to understand how the logic of the sentence is working. Now, the most important thing we're going to focus on right now is the subject and verb of the independent clauses. So we'll come to dependent clauses later on, but if you can get independent clauses down, you'll generally be fine with dependent clauses. But subjects and verbs work in clauses. They are the unit that holds together the clause. So finding them becomes absolutely essential. Keep in mind that the definition of a sentence includes the independent clause. It must have an independent clause. The other aspect is going to be that you say it's a sentence. That's a stylistic aspect. So for this, you're getting the grammatical aspect of a sentence down first. If you can get the subject and verb of the independent clause, you've got the backbone of the grammatical backbone of that sentence, and you understand how it works. Okay? So the first stage to go through is to eliminate the prepositional phrases. That's the first thing you need to do. Keep in mind that the prepositional phrase can never ever include the subject and verb of a sentence. That's because prepositional phrases function as adjectives and adverbs. They function as adjectives and adverbs. They cannot function as the subject, the verb, or the object. They can't do that. So they cannot function as the subject, the verb, or the object in a sentence. If you get them out of the way, in most cases, the subject and verb kind of float to the top and become much more evident. So they make it much easier. Keep in mind that a lot of good writing is 1/3 to 1/2 prepositional phrases. If you can clear away that much of the sentence or that much of the paragraph, in most cases the independent clauses, the backbone of it, the subject and verb, become much more apparent. They float to the top. They're easier to identify. So get rid of the prepositional phrases first, and then go to the next stage. Find the subject and verb together. Now, this goes back to the basic idea of how subjects and verbs work. Keep in mind that clauses have a subject and verb, and they function as a single unit. They are not distinct from each other. Many of you have been taught to find the subject of a sentence by looking at who or what the sentence is about. This approach can be very misleading, and you're going to see this with the example. Many times, who or what the sentence is about is, in fact, the subject of the sentence, the grammatical subject. But oftentimes it's not. Oftentimes, who or what the sentence is about really just identifies the topic of the sentence and not the grammatical subject of the sentence. The topic of the sentence gets more to the meaning of the sentence. The subject of the sentence gets to the grammatical logic of it. You can have a different subject than topic in a sentence, and we'll see that in a bit. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is, in the second step, find the subject and verb together. They are a single unit and they function together. They should make sense together. Once you've gotten rid of these, this second step should be much easier. Don't jump to the second step without first getting rid of the prepositional phrases. Always get rid of those prepositional phrases first, because it will be much more complicated to get the second step done with those still in the way. Okay? Then, finally, check to make sure, the last step is the easiest one, check to make sure the subject and verb function as a single unit. They should match and make sense together. They should just click for you. Okay, those work together, those make sense. They shouldn't give you that odd feeling that something's off right here. Instead, they should just click. If they don't click for you, go back and try it again. See if it works again. Okay? So that's the three stages. First, get rid of the prepositional phrases. Find the subject and verb together at the same time. And then see if they click. If they don't, just go back here and give it one more try. Okay? Now let's go through an example. This is a somewhat contrived example, but it will show you how the process works and why it's so important. Now this sentence, on Sunday, one of my cousins threw a great party for the Super Bowl. On Sunday, one of my cousins threw a great party for the Super Bowl. Now, if you ask most folks what the subject of the sentence is, without eliminating the prepositional phrases, the two most common answers I hear are cousins or party. The sentence really seems to be about about the party, but the cousins seem to be throwing the party. Those are the two most common answers I get for what the subject of the sentence is. But in both cases, those answers are wrong. They actually are grammatically incorrect. In many senses, party is really what it's about. That's the topic of the sentence. Is really the sentence seems to be about the party. But that's the topic. It's not the grammatical subject of it. The subject is, in this case, because we have an action verb through, is going to be who or what performs the action of the verb. We're going to get to that in the second stage, but we haven't done the first stage yet. You're going to see that the second stage is going to be easier once we get rid of the prepositional phrases. And here they are. The first one is on Sunday, and we can cross that out. On Sunday cannot have the subject or verb in it, so we might as well get it out of the way. It's a prepositional phrase telling us when. Okay? Of my cousins is the next prepositional phrase. Notice that cousins is part of a prepositional phrase. It cannot be the subject or verb of the sentence. It cannot do that. For many people, that's something new, because they think the cousins threw the party. But if you think about it, the cousins didn't. It wasn't a bunch of cousins who threw the party. Okay? Let's keep going for a bit. A great party is not a prepositional phrase, but for the Super Bowl is. So all of those are out. The subject and verb of the sentence cannot be within any of those prepositional phrases. Those are all extra detail. These are all functioning as adjectives and adverbs for the rest of the sentence. Okay? What's left should make sense. In most cases, it should make sense perfectly well without the prepositional phrases. Prepositional phrases, keep in mind, add detail and nuance. That's what they do. In this case, what we have left is one threw a great party. That's a clause. That's an independent clause. It could stand alone. That's the type of sentence you might speak. It wouldn't be often written because there's not much detail. If you knew already that I was talking about on Sunday and we were talking about my cousins in the Super Bowl, which often happens in speech, it fills in a lot of the detail. The speaker and hearer often understand the details already. In writing, you usually need these prepositional phrases to give much more context and detail. But if you take them out, the independent clause or the clause will stand there by itself. You can eliminate all of them. And what you have left is one threw a great party. For most folks, this is now a lot easier to deal with. One is your subject. What did one do? Threw. One threw is the subject and verb of the sentence. That's what happened. Keep in mind the cousins didn't throw the party. One threw the party. One of the cousins. This of my cousins just describes the one. It's not one of my friends, one of my neighbors. It's one of my cousins. All this is doing is describing the one. So one threw. One threw, yeah, that makes sense. It clicks. So that's the third step. The great party is the object. That's what they threw. We'll come back to that later. But one threw is the subject and verb. That's the process you need to go through to get the subject and verb of any clause. For now, we're focusing on independent clauses. If you can get this, you've got the heart of your sentence, because every sentence must have an independent clause, which means a subject and verb that should make sense by itself. Okay? Thank you.